That's Jen.
That's Jen.
And this is Talk Dogs with Us.
All right, today's episode is Puppies Part 2. What you can do as the pet professional to help puppies in your community.
This is for trainers, vet staff, social workers, doggy daycare workers or owners.
Shelter staff.
Shelter staff. Yeah.
Bunch of professional folks doing professional puppy stuff.
Thinking about how to think about it.
So, just like human kindergarten, we want to think about things like puppy social, puppy kindergarten. We want to think about them as forming young minds. Not only can you take the time in those socials or classes to educate, but you can also guide the client through other services you provide and get them on track for lifelong learning. So if you offer, let's say, a cooperative care class and you notice a puppy has body handling issues, take that time to educate the owner and talk to them about what you offer and what you're seeing and really get them on board with a lifelong learning with their dog.
In that same sort of train tracks there, if you are a veterinary team member and there's a puppy coming into the clinic, you want to think about what that puppy's learning while they're there and what you can help them through while they're there. Also, don't forget to then funnel the client into other services that you offer, like puppy socials or happy visits, pending what the puppy needs. Maybe this puppy you can identify at the first visit is struggling with body handling, so you refer them to some cooperative care happy visits.
Frequently, puppy socials are more of a community service. At least at our practice, they're not a price point where anyone's making a ton of money off of them. What they are is they're a community service where we get to interface with our community. We get to give owners information. We get to get puppies started off on the right paw and potentially sell future classes. I upsell puppy kindergarten a lot at puppy socials because people come in, they have a great time, and they want to know how to do more.
Yeah, I mean, to put puppy socials at a price that would cover the cost of the manpower, and then sometimes just your time
Treats and electricity and
it makes it a little bit cost prohibitive for new puppy owners to go to regularly.
Yeah.
So by pricing it in the thought of it being a community service, you're then getting puppies started off on the right paw, but also funneling them into your own stuff.
So if you want to start a puppy social, what are some things that you need?
I mean, you got to think about what your goals are for the puppy social. You know, what socialization and tactile and, I don't know, experience type things do you want the puppies to experience while they're in the social? You're only going to be able to do so much. So to choose your priorities will help you then form the rest of it.
Yeah. I also think that making sure that you have a safe facility. So when I was at the shelter, we didn't have a safe facility to have puppies that weren't fully vaccinated on site because the entrance that everybody uses was the entrance that everybody uses, whether it was a stray dog or an owner surrender or an adopted dog. And so since we couldn't verify the vaccination status of a fair amount of dogs that came into our area, we couldn't use our facility for puppy socials. But if you maybe had a shelter and you had a separate entrance, or you aren't affiliated with a shelter, or maybe you're affiliated with a clinic and you can keep them away from hospitalized patients.
Or maybe you're a rescue.
Yeah. And you have dedicated space. I think the space is kind of the first thing to acknowledge that you'll need. And you'll need a fair amount of open play space.
Mm-hmm.
And there are different ways to run puppy socials. Like the way I run my puppy socials is very different than the ones that Jen attended with Jude.
Yeah. There's so many different ways that you can put it together. And that's the cool part about it. And just because you're not including something doesn't mean that your puppy social is wrong or worse or better. It's just different. And that's the beauty of it, is that it is a community service. So you can, instead of having to tailor it to exactly what this specific client needs, you can kind of do your own thing first go. Wow. Elmo really had to groan through that.
So inside the facility, the materials that I think about baby gates.
Mm-hmm.
We usually set our puppy social is a big wide open play room, and we have a quiet kids corner. So if puppies come in that are more fearful, that are more timid, that are maybe smaller and all the puppies are larger, they have a dedicated play space that's set up in the beginning. So just in case we need it, we always have it. If we don't have a puppy that needs to utilize that space, we open up the room and we let everybody explore it, but we make sure that everybody's loaded in before we make that decision. So there's not, a bunch of rambunctious puppies that we're then trying to shoo out of a space, which is for some reason the last thing they want to do.
Yeah, we use a lot of the metal X pens.
Yes.
What I find frustrating is there is no good mobile pen scenario.
Oh, yeah. There's drawbacks to pretty much all of them.
It's so frustrating. How has that not been created?
And how is it 2026 and the best way to cover X pens
is
blankets
sheet.
and a binder clips?
Yeah.
That's wild to me.
Any inventors listening?
Yeah. Does anybody have any ideas? If anybody has any ideas about how to cover X pens that aren't someone's used sheets and binder clips, I would love to hear about it.
Yeah. So where I took Jude to puppy socials was at Heavenly Hounds by a local dog trainer, Stephanie Kowalewski. And it was set up very unique to any other puppy social that I'd heard about or seen. She actually had those plastic gates that are heavier and they interconnect, that are usually more for a baby. Sometimes they're in RBG colors, sometimes they're gray. And each puppy parent and puppy had their own fully X-penned section that they would enter and exit through during their assigned playtime. And Stephanie and the assistant would be there to kind of referee the social. And depending on the puppy's personalities that she saw, she would call them out to play together, to give puppies breaks and go back in, to make sure that, and sometimes they did also have a really small dog section in the back, or the front, so that the smaller guys could all have also their own, because when you have a rowdy mastiff, they're not going to want to play with a baby chihuahua. And that area just had a lot of different sized puppies that would come. But it was very cool because when Jude wasn't playing, we got to practice how to relax. And that became invaluable to me.
Yeah.
I also found it helpful that I didn't have to try and figure out how to hold a leash at the same time as doing that, because we were X-penned in. There were puppies that would break out because, sometimes you just can't contain them. Thinking of you, Marlo. But I found it easier to not have to worry about the leash and instead to be able to manage Jude through that, let her out to play, or let her back in when she was tired.
How long were those puppy socials?
The entire social was an hour.
Okay.
I think. Yeah, it was an hour. And then usually they ended up playing for maybe 20 to 30 minutes of that hour total based on when they would come out and go back in.
Okay. And see, our puppy socials are supposed to be 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Sometimes they run a little long if everybody's having a good time and we have time. We let them play a little longer. But ours are supposed to be short so that they come in, they integrate, they play, they explore. We do a lot of training there too, sort of if maybe there aren't cohesive little play groups forming, we will get puppies interested in walking on a skateboard or playing a piano or going through a tunnel or checking out on a big, what's it called? A golf umbrella.
Yeah.
And so we'll have those opportunities to reach for in case maybe, you know, the group is a little on the quiet side and there's one rowdy guy. We can keep the rowdy guy busy and keep their brain engaged.
It all depends on how much time and effort you can put into it. And that can also change weekly, which is the cool thing about it. And the part that makes it a little easier to accept it as a community service and maybe less profit.
Yeah. There have also been puppy socials that do sort of an ACE free work kind of setup. So ACE is animal-centered education. And I'm going to do a Cliff's Notes rundown on this. But basically what it is you get a bunch of textures and a bunch of food. And you kind of spread the food. So you make sure you have something kind of crunchy, let's say, maybe something chewy, something lickable. And you spread the food and the textures out. And a lot of times, like maybe you'll put hard treats on a garbage bag, or you'll put a little bit of peanut butter on the lid of a tote so that it's a weird, unstable surface. And the point is that the puppies get to explore different textures and they get to be motivated by different kinds of food and they get to interface with different kinds of food on different textures. And so that's like literally the shortest description ever of it. And it's a little bit more nuanced and complex, but setting it up like that can give the puppies a goal to do so that there's like a direction, like, hey, we're going to come in and we're going to have these snacks.
Yeah. And I think there's just so many ways you can do it. And by doing it that way, you kind of give them something to do rather than come in and just play with each other.
Yeah.
Which is a good thought to have.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's good too. Like I always kind of like try to point it out because I feel like some owners think puppy social equals puppy fight club and they just really want them to come in and like wrestle and interact. Yeah, and play the whole time. And so I always try to point out that like even the non-playing moments are valuable learning moments that we can exist near other dogs and we're okay. I think the next consideration that kind of goes hand in hand in that is having food available.
Yeah.
We use food in the puppy socials and puppy kindergarten. We'll talk about puppy kindergarten in a minute. We use the food as medicine. So food brings instant pleasure to dogs. When they're going through something challenging, providing them with instant pleasure in that moment can help them shift their perspective on how intimidating that particular stimuli was. And so if we can say, you put your feet on the skateboard and the skateboard moved and you got freaked out, but you got a treat afterwards, now are you brave enough to come back on the skateboard?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how we use food. Or if the puppies are worried, we'll make sure that they are licking at something or eating soft treats. And sometimes we'll have to educate owners that there may be soft stool after this, right? Because not only was it, quote, a lot of treats, but also there's a stress component.
Yep.
And when you mix stress, novel treats, and an abundance of treats, you're bound to get a little soft stool or maybe some diarrhea.
Or sometimes a little stress puke.
It
happens.
It happens. And so we keep a mix of highly palatable and bland treats so that if somebody comes to one social, they can come back and say, hey, this was a little too rich for, my puppy. And we will switch to the bland treats. Because usually, puppies will eat anything.
Usually, yeah.
They'll usually
One
eat
word
anything.
of caution. If you open a meat-flavored baby food jar in a room full of puppies and only intend to give that to one puppy,
that's not possible.
They will all know and they will all stop eating everything else.
There will be a swarm.
Yeah, we really try hard not to open.
Yeah, we've been using the
meat-flavored
spray
baby
cheese because it's not as stinky, I think.
Yeah,
So it seems to work a little better.
yeah,
So we'll have that especially for maybe more nervous puppies or puppies that might be already reactive to other puppies.
yeah.
We're making sure that those puppies are eating during that process and they're getting something highly palatable. So they're pleasure pairing that experience.
Yeah. And something to mention is that you might want to think about the culture of the social that you're having. Some places might encourage owners to walk around with their puppy and manage their puppy because they don't have the manpower. Others might have the manpower to have enough people around to manage the puppies so that the owners can kind of sit back. And then you have to manage the culture of the owners not just scrolling on their phone, although sometimes they just need that.
Yeah.
And you want to try and encourage them to communicate and build community with the other puppy owners.
And I think another important touchstone is what do you do when there's a mess?
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a really great culture right now that in our Sunday classes, at least, when there's a mess, one of the owners will get up out of their seat and they will guard that mess to make sure nobody steps in it, nobody tries to smell it or get too close to it or do whatever.
Or run through it.
God, whatever war crimes they're going to commit, while our staff goes to get cleanup materials. They'll also try to help clean up, which I think is really sweet. They're not required to. Our staff is there to clean up in the moment because we know what cleaners are supposed to be used. But at least if you can get the pet parents involved in like guarding the area.
Yeah.
Or sometimes if it's a particularly large mess or difficult to clean mess, everybody will kind of give their puppy a timeout and sort of like make sure that they snag their puppy and then put them on their lap or hold them by their chair or something like that so that our staff can go in there and get it cleaned up.
Yeah. And this is where your communication to owners becomes really important.
Yeah.
Because when they are checked out and you need them to check back in, you can communicate that to them in a way that doesn't kind of put them off.
Yeah.
It also gives you a really big leg up to education for the owners because they aren't feeling like you have everything under control. This is daycare and they can check out.
Yeah.
They're invested in
They're part of the process.
what the puppy's learning and learning from you and your comments.
Yeah.
One of the cool things that we do at our puppy kindergarten is we have a week that is body language week where Jen will let them play a little bit longer and will point out the body language to the owners so that they can understand what's happening between the puppies.
Yeah.
And
they can understand their own dogs.
Yeah.
And they'll ask questions. Like we'll start with tail wagging doesn't mean carte blanche happy dog.
Yeah.
Tail wagging means I'm ready to engage. I'm ready to engage means a lot of different things based on posture. And I'll kind of like, I'll say, look, I'm ready to engage. And I'll hold my hands out as if I was going to like offer someone a hug. And then I'll say, look, I'm ready to engage. And I put my fists up like the little Notre Dame guy. And I'll say, I'm ready to engage in both scenarios, but my body language tells you it's very different how I'm going to engage with you.
Yeah. We'll get
That kind of makes
owners
them think.
that will ask questions like, oh, does that mean he likes that? Or does that mean he doesn't like that?
Yeah.
Or does that mean that he's dominant or alpha or submissive? Or does that mean that he is a bully? And learning how to communicate with the owners through those things can be really helpful in so many other areas.
Yeah.
And it's a good way to be able to practice that. It's like microdosing practice of communicating with owners because you can redirect them to say, I think the question that you're actually asking is this. And then you can explain the answer and say why their first question, why the words were just not exactly what they meant to ask.
Yeah. And speaking of puppy kindergarten, there's a bunch of different formats for puppy kindergarten, but I want to go through mine a little bit because I was going to say grew up, but I came up and when I started training doing AKC Star Puppy classes because the first trainer I worked for was a AKC evaluator. And so at the end, we could have a little mini test and all the puppies would get their certification if they passed, which like AKC Star Puppy, they pretty much all pass. I have since moved away from that curriculum. It's just, there's not anything wrong with it. It's just not for me. I felt that there were other things I wanted to communicate. So the weeks that I have polite greetings week. So we get them to advocate for their puppies so that they can say, yes, you can pet my puppy if they're sitting or they have 4 on the floor, or they can say no thanks to the person asking. So we have staff on hand to walk around and practice polite greetings. And also we teach them about asking before the person is there. So if you know a person's coming to approach, ask your puppy to sit in advance of the person walking up, and then, you know, how to do all that. And then we talk about at-home greetings because I think that's a horse of a different color. I don't think at-home greetings we can be like, hello, please sit before I am home. It is me, your mother. So I think at home we talk about sort of making sure, step 1, that they're not practicing undesirable behaviors like jumping, and then 2, what to do to get to the point where they can sit to greet you, or they can at least stand on 4 on the floor and not be jumping up all over you. So we talk about that. Week 1, we also teach a little bit of focus. So I started on things like look, where the dog puts their eyes on your eyes. So our next week, and these are in no particular order, our next week, we tend to do walking practice. So we get used to being on a leash. We get used to walking on one side or the other, not necessarily a strict heel, because I don't really think dogs need to be in a heel for them to have an enriching walk. But some people with small dogs struggle with dogs bobbing and weaving in front of them. And so keeping to one side or the other is a safety tactic, because then they're not going to trip or yeet their puppy into space.
We go over leash handling.
Yeah. How to handle the leash, where to put your hands, how to hold your treats. So we go over like a little owner technique. And then we talk about some U-turns so that you can move your puppy around through space with your words and get them moving and grooving on a leash. We then work on the body language week that we talked about. So while they're playing, we let them play a little extra long, and I'm lecturing about body language. We also kind of squish in puppy biting because I needed a place for it to go. And this week kind of seemed where it would go. So we do body language, we do puppy biting, we do some potty training talk. It's kind of an open forum while the puppies are playing. I'm lecturing and the people are asking questions. And then to like end that lesson with some teaching, we do name recognition and recall. So then after that, we do I call it Health and Beauty Week, where we do like an intro to cooperative care. We talk about how to prep for vaccines. We talk about nail care, because everybody wants to learn about nail care. That's a super big, important one for folks. And then our last week is relaxation week. It's where we learn to go to a place. We learn to lay down. And if there's time, if we're all doing well, we'll do a little relaxation exercise in the class to get them into that settled puppy state, because that's so hard for puppies.
Yeah, I think the only thing you didn't mention was that the beginning of each class, there's a little mini social.
Yes.
And then they go back on leash and we learn.
Yes. I have done classes both ways. And there's drawbacks and there's pluses and minuses, right? There's drawbacks and pros and cons. I like to do the playtime first, because then I feel like when they're on leash, they're a little bit more like centered and ready to go. I feel like when you do the playtime last, you lose them. They're so frustrated that they can't get off leash and see their buddies that they can't think at all.
Yeah.
And I will say, like, having the playtime before, you do get a little, like, right when you put the leashes on, where they go, wait, I didn't sign up for this. I signed
extinction.
Up for, yeah, a little struggle. And I think, you know, we get the palatable treats out, we start working. As long as we have enough room to spread out, we spread out, and then the ship kind of rights itself. So yeah, I mean, consider how you want to do your playtime, but I think playtime should be an essential part of puppy kindergarten, where they get to interact with one another.
Yeah. In the puppy kindergarten that Jude went to, there was no playtime. It was completely separate from Puppy Social. And so I guess also because they did the pens for each owner, that would be a lot to set up and take down for a class.
Yeah.
But they didn't have any Puppy Social part of kindergarten.
Yeah.
So it also, I think, depends on what ages you're going to offer it to. Because if you're having teenage puppies in these classes, then you don't want them playing with the littles.
Yeah.
In most cases. Or sometimes you do, and you can work that out, whatever you can do.
Yeah. And I will say, like, ours has an age cap. So, you know, anything over 16 weeks, unfortunately, has to go to basic manners, but can do socials and basic manners. So they can do the age appropriate social time and basic manners, because my socials are split too. The socials are any puppy up to 16 weeks and then 16 to 22 weeks. So 16 weeks is kind of a weird floaty thing where they could come to either. And we kind of like, I use my discretion. Like if I'm seeing a large breed, I'll probably stack them in with the older kids, which might not be appropriate, but it's my best guess when they're just right at that 16-week cutoff.
And if you are like a shelter or a vet office or a rescue, just because you offer socials doesn't mean you have to offer kindergarten.
Correct.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
It's kind of whatever you can manage, but it does provide a community service that is so needed in so many areas.
And I think even if your location couldn't supply the space, the treats, the manpower to do puppy socials or puppy kindergarten, I think it would be helpful for you to look at where around you does.
Yeah.
And have that in your back pocket. Like if you're at a vet visit and say, hey, have you enrolled in any puppy socials or puppy kindergarten? Here's a name. I went, and you can always ask an instructor to audit their class. So auditing is just where you come without a dog and you just observe.
Yeah.
And a lot of places are very amenable to say like, hey, I'm at a vet office down the road and I'd like to recommend you, but I'd really like to see a class first.
Mm-hmm.
I've never turned down any of those requests that I've ever gotten, either from prospective parents that want to join the class or from other professionals that just want to see how the class is run. So you can absolutely always ask to attend and just audit and not like bring your own dog, obviously. But, if you have a dog, bring it and see what happens.
Yeah.
But I think if you can't offer it, having a resource in your back pocket that you can refer to makes you that much more valuable to your client and makes you that much more plugged in as an expert.
Absolutely. And places where I think about that you could have puppy social are some warehouses.
Yeah.
Not like obviously a warehouse that's in use, but a lot of like in Charlotte, there's a lot of like warehouses or breweries that have space for things like that and have appropriate flooring for biosecurity. Some vet office and lobbies can be good for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, this would be not during normal open hours. Private dog parks or membership only dog parks are good places because they would hopefully already have the biosecurity stuff down. If you're thinking about offering this in like your garage or a area that you have, you're going to want to research the biosecurity sort of importances surrounding this and make sure that you're using appropriate cleaners, appropriate non-porous materials, flooring, how to clean everything in between and whatnot. That's, I feel like, outside the scope of this, but it's really important to think about.
Yeah. Like all of our toys get washed between each puppy social so that in case one of the owners comes back and it says, oh, by the way, I just found out my puppy had Giardia, I know that those toys were in use for the group and they were hopefully not pooped on. That would be horrible. I don't know why I picked Giardia, but here we are. But they're washed and all the hard surfaces are sprayed with a cleaner and scrubbed down.
Mm-hmm.
Just to make sure that if anything communicable was around, it's not communicated.
Yeah.
It's not communicated, but it's not transmitted. Yeah, we'll say that.
Yeah. Communicated or transmuted.
Nope. Either way. Wow.
Transmitted.
Word. We're doing it over here.
It's going great.
So that's kind of from like a training perspective, like how to run puppy socials and puppy kindergarten. But what about a vet perspective?
I think when a puppy comes into the clinic, there are a lot of things that we can do to help them through that appointment without having them have a single learning event time. You know, puppies might come in for their vaccines, for weight checks. Anytime we're touching a puppy, as long as they are medically cleared to do so, they should be eating or licking something. And having the rule of if they're not eating, you go hands off, and then the puppy decides that they don't want to come near you because they know that if they start eating, you're going to put your hands on them again. That gives you the opportunity to talk to the owner about how that puppy's feeling in that moment, about their body language. It opens you up to ask them about things at home and how those are going. It just gives you a lot of opportunity to be able to educate the owner and help them through the other half of this, because, you know, their training community will hopefully be on one side supporting them, but they're also going to need the animal health community as well.
Yeah. And if your clinic offers happy visits, knowing that those are available for the puppy to come back and maybe just have a visit where they eat and they aren't touched and they get to just visit the vet clinic. Elmo is 4 and I did a happy visit for him to his dermatologist because he had kind of a rough time last time he went there. So I had to go pick up some meds. I put him in the car. I took him with me because I know that their lobby is pet friendly. I brought him in the lobby. We ate a bunch of treats while we waited for the meds. We got the meds and away we went. So he did a little practice visit where he got to go to the dermatologist and no one put tape on his feet, which he hates.
Yeah.
So he had one good experience up against his negative experiences to hopefully kind of even the score a little bit.
Yeah. And I think when you're talking about puppies visiting outside of primary care, things get a little bit harder because they might be ill. They might be having a broken bone. They might be having, you know, some kind of allergic reaction. And in some situations, there's only so much you can do. I think the finer nuances of that are outside the scope of this, but maybe one day we can get an expert in to talk about what you can do on those occasions,
like an urgent care or ER
where it's
situation.
much harder. Like if a puppy's come in with parvo and you know you have to place a catheter, you can put lidocaine on the puppy's leg, but sometimes there's nothing you can do about that restraint. We have to restrain them and get a catheter in so that we can heal them. And sometimes sedating them is unsafe. So just know that when we have to torture puppies, no one likes it. And we understand where you're coming from. It sucks to have to torture puppies because you know that then gives them the long-term effects of having difficult vet care. And I think just always constantly thinking, what are they learning from this? And is what they're learning worth it?
Yeah. I think that sentiment even applies in class, right? What are they learning from this and is that learning worth it?
Right.
I think that's a good motto to have with your classes too.
Yeah. I think that's our top tip.
Yeah, that is a top tip.
Tip top. Here we go.
Yeah. So yeah, a little guide to, you know, how we do socials and kindergarten and some other ways that we've seen. But hopefully if you're looking to get set up and do your own thing, here's some helpful hints and some guideposts for you to keep going with your puppy care.
Heck yeah. Good night.
And good luck. Talk Dogs With Us is an informational podcast and not a substitute for qualified medical advice.
Are you a pet professional or parent looking to learn more and challenge your current assumption about our pets? Then let's go on this journey together at our website, talkdogswithus.com. Give us a bark at Facebook and Instagram at Talk Dogs With Us. You can help keep the conversation going by subscribing to our Patreon, patreon.com/TalkDogsWithUs, or buy us a coffee at ko-fi.com/TalkDogsWithUs. Art direction by Alex Oren, theme song and audio engineering by Stephen Rossblock. Check out more from him at StephenRossblock.com. Thanks for listening.